sometimes struggle to get up in the morning or wind down for bed at night? I used to find it so difficult. I woke up with no sense of positivity and brightness. I was void of motivation and spirit. This changed completely when I started waking up with a Lumi body clock. These incredible devices mimic the light and colour of a real sunrise and sunset, transforming the experience of waking up and going to sleep completely. Rather than being suddenly woken up with an alarm clock, the Lumi body clock will wake you up gradually with a natural sunrise. The Lumi body clock has been shown to improve the quality of sleep and awakening and to boost mood and productivity in clinical trials. You can personalise your sunrise and sunset from 15 to 90 minutes with their clinically tested unique natural light and more than 20 sleep and wake sounds. We all deserve to sleep well and to wake up feeling fresh. So if you're finding this a challenge and you want to try a new approach, go to lumi.com.
Welcome to the Greatest Music of All Time podcast. A real honour to talk to you. And, this is one of the occasions where I feel like I'm talking to one of the greatest. So real honour.
I was going to say, if this is the greatest music of all time, play me somebody. Good mind.
Well, we'll play Runaway, one of my favourite records of all time. But I want to start off and asking about the present. We were listening to the new CWF single Carry. When did you record that, and what's the kind of story behind that?
I don't even remember. Peter comes over about once a year. I think he's coming over in November, just to write and record stuff. Peter Fristedt, he's a guitar player.
He's based in Sweden.
Yeah, he's based. It's I think a little small town right near Gothenburg, Sweden. And I've just kind of been working off and on with Peter for, it looks like 10, 15 years now. Time flies, And, I turned him on to Joe Williams, and him and Joe did an album together. And then he said, well, let's do the three of us together and see what happens. Then we did the first CWF album. And that was, Peter is a giant West Coast music fan. So if he had his druthers, everything would sound like a West Coast record. Which to me would be, no matter what it is, even a whole record of all R&B I would be bored, even though I'm a giant R&B fan, So Joe and I kind of got into where let's do this and let's do that and let's do that, just to open up the record with a couple other songs that don't sound like early Toto, because he's imprinted with West Coast stuff. So it's always kind of cool to give him shit. Hey, Peter, that sounds just like the last one, And I think Carrie was already cut for something else, and then he recut it. Had Jason sing on it. Jason Scheff.
Jason Scheff, yeah.
A partner of mine on a lot of stuff that I do. And he's, he just, whatever Peter does, it always usually ends up getting done, unless it goes too far left. We did one tune where we co-wrote something. Tamara actually came up with some lyrics, and Stefan Gunnarsson came up with a really great chorus for a song called All the Love in the World. We got Michael McDonald to sing on it.
Wow.
And then Peter had I think Tommy Malum or somebody rearrange it so they underdubbed the band. And it just, the song went away, and it became yet another vehicle for West Coast. And I said, whoa, come back. We were doing better, you're overstepping. And it's happened once or twice, but for the most part, we get along pretty well. He's very good guitarist, very good, and he gets these records out. So we're looking to have a new one out probably maybe January.
All right, that's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
They're always great. And interesting.
I talked to him yesterday. He said Joe looks like he might want to record some, so we get Joe back in the ball game, because Joe got pretty seriously Toto'd out there for a little while.
They're playing a lot of dates.
Yeah, we couldn't get him on a lot of stuff. That's why one of the reasons why Jason's singing on the one song.
Yeah. Well, Jason's a fantastic singer as well.
Wonderful, yeah.
Yeah.
And man, Jason, I got to tell you, since his playing and singing since he left Chicago is improved 900%.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think a lot of they wanted him to be somebody that he wasn't. You know, oh, you be, they did this with me. I didn't buy it. You be Terry Kath, you be Peter Cetera. Now learn how to sing, not learn how they sing stuff. No.
Yeah, it's better to, when we're talking about musicians of this quality, it's better to
There's
be
a
yourself.
point where you just go, no. And I think when Jason was younger, I mean, he joined the band when he was 23 years old. So, I mean, he was kind of buying that.
Yeah.
So he always kind of had that hanging over him a little bit, you know. Sing it like Peter, sing it like Peter. Peter's going to sing it like Peter. I'm going to sing it like I sing it. And that's kind of where he's at now. And
Yeah.
man, he's freed up completely.
Well, there's no.
And he's a bad
better or worse.
mofo, man. He's a seriously
He's an incredible singer.
great bass player, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he's just, you know, let's, I'm going to just have to swear out a warrant for his arrest and get him to have him stop this shit right away. Nah, I love him. He's a good guy.
So when we're talking about West Coast, I was going to say this later in the interview, but I kind of know your answer to this question. A lot of people call West Coast music yacht rock music. What do you think about that?
We call it, what were you?
Yacht rock music.
Yacht rock. Whoever came up with it. Do you ever hear the yacht rock station on satellite radio?
Yeah, I mean, I like the tunes.
The songs are fine.
The songs are great.
You know, you get a lot of Michael McDonald. You get
Yeah.
bunch of Kenny Loggins. A
Yeah.
lot of Christopher Cross.
Great records.
But the announcer, yacht rock. I just want to shoot this guy. I mean, it's just such a just bad disc jockey.
Do you think it's a bit disrespectful, the term, towards the kind of like that?
It doesn't make
movement?
a lot of sense to me. Yacht rock. What does it mean? I mean, if everybody. I mean, I've been kind of involved, and I was probably maybe in on the ground floor of this, what they call West Coast music, and I think which kind of started in a lot of ways kind of started when Steely Dan started to go where the music was taking them.
Yeah.
Back then, and then along came Toto, Boss Skaggs, really, you know, and all of a sudden there was what it was okay. Up to that point, we had pop, right, and then we also had R&B. And then we also had jazz, and never shall they meet. West Coast, they met, pretty much.
Yeah.
And there was sort of little bit of an educational thing put on what is pop music. And certain guys really produced great records in that level. David Foster's one of them. David Page, you know, produced all the Toto stuff, and pretty much was on the arrangement and co-writing on Silk Degrees.
Yeah.
And that record is considered a ground zero West Coast
record. Yeah.
My record, not so much the single album, but Runaway album is considered a kind of a ground zero West Coast record.
It is.
And it's funny because me and David jumped all over the single album. I mean, we got deep into it. I mean, both of us really gave a shit at that point of the game. And especially David. I mean, he was deep into it. And then when we got around to doing the Runaway album, we kind of had to do it on whatever time we had. You know, started off as a singles deal. And so we cut 2 or 3 songs and submitted them to Joe Smith at Electro. And he says, "Oh, man, this is great. Why don't you do an album?" But by that time, David had already signed on to do the Tubes record, with completion backwards principle. And he hired me pretty much to be their kind of go in with them, sort of help them with their vocal stuff. He asked them, he said, "Can I bring in a guy from around here to kind of help you with your vocals?" He said, "Oh, we don't want some slick LA singer. How about Bill Champlin? Hey, he's one of us." It was probably the slickest in town at the moment anyway. But neither here nor there, we ended up having a ball doing it, and it was great. And then after that, we finished up, you know, we just wrote a bunch of stuff and finished up the Runaway album.
That's really interesting. I mean, both albums,
But we
Single
kind
and Runaway, are great.
I don't want to say we schlocked it off, but at that point of the game, we'd worked together long enough to where we knew what was going to happen. We knew how it was going to happen. We knew what was going to go on vocally, da-da-da.
So it was more
and
immediate.
I think David came up with really some of the coolest parts ever on a song called Sarah.
I love that song.
On that, yeah. I mean, we really did some vocals on that. We stacked up some vocals like crazy on that one. It worked out really great.
What's the story behind this on YouTube? There's a live performance of Sarah, It's a great performance. But it seems like you're in like a ski resort or something, or like you're near a mountain, and you're performing Sarah.
Oh,
live.
that was probably
Was that in a
when the
movie?
record was out. We did a movie called Copper Mountain
All right.
with Alan Thicke, who actually Sarah. I had the song Sarah for a couple of years, but I didn't have the lyrics, and I kept writing different lyrics, and it seemed like a girl's name had to be in there somewhere somehow. It's just one of those ones where you go, this is reaching out for that. And I was just, usually I'm pretty good. I come up lyrically with just about anything. I was hitting the wall with this. It was not working. And Alan Thicke was hanging out at the sessions. And I know Alan, I'd worked with Alan doing a bunch of his songs and stuff like that. And I knew he was a really good lyricist. And David said, why don't we just have Alan write them? So I made a cassette. How about that for a little old? And gave it to Alan. Alan came back mostly written. I may have had to fool around with it a little bit. But, kind of like the way Elton fools around with Bernie's stuff. Is, I got to clip off a syllable here. And we got to figure a way to just make this fit in where the music's going. And it ended up being the song Sarah. And it was Alan that did it. But Alan had that movie going. And it was the first time anybody had seen Jim Carrey doing anything. So Jim was part of that movie, and it was called Copper Mountain.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was at a ski resort up there. We ended up having fun doing it.
Yeah, it's a great.
Rita Coolidge was doing it. Tamara had been singing backgrounds with Rita for a while. So I mean, it was just Ronnie Hawkins I think was on that show.
It's a great performance, and it's great to see because there's not that much from that time.
Singing outside in the snow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your pipes
Difficult.
warmed up? What do you mean? Nothing's warmed up.
But so the single record, both records are great, but obviously different sounds.
Single, I think, leaned
put more time
a little
in.
more toward R&B.
R&B.
Yeah.
What about the track Your Mama? That's such a great. That's R&B.
We had two bands for the single album. How we did it at Foster. So there's you got some R&B stuff and you got some really kind of pop stuff. There's a song called "Careless" on there, and I think the ass kicker of the whole record is "Keys to the Kingdom," with that whole orchestral beginning. I saw Jeff reading that. And Jeff Porcaro. I walked in on the session and he was reading that. I was like, holy smokes, this guy's amazing. Because, all these shots, all these pushes, all this other stuff, and Jeff's nailing it.
He was an amazing drummer.
So that band, for the straight ahead stuff, we used David Hungate on bass. We used David Page on keyboard, David Foster on keyboard, Steve Lukather on guitar. It was Toto.
Toto, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much Toto. And then the other band that we used for Yo Mama and Love Is Forever and a couple other things, I can't remember which ones they were, it's a while back, was Ray Parker's band. So we used Larry Talbot on drums, who's a monster, and then I don't know if the bass player was Ray's bass player. We used Ray on rhythm guitar, Ray Parker Jr. Oh my goodness, he's still to this day is one of the best rhythm guitar players on the earth. That guy can make it funky.
Bro,
I had one tune that went through all of these changes, and he found that that was common to each one of the changes. He found the one spot that could happen. And he just put that in there, and it just was like just covering it with glue. It just glued the whole song together, just with the rhythm guitar part. That's when, that's when I really realized that, hey, these session guys got some shit going on. They not only can read what you want them to play, but they can play what you want to hear.
They just
That you didn't know about before because you had no idea. So I think those guys, like Graydon, Ray Parker, David Hungate, Page, those guys all came up with stuff. None of it was on paper. They just came up with it. Hey man, listen to dum dum bum bum ba da dee da. Just let me do a line on the roads right here. Okay. Later on, Larry Williams came in. We had him dub it with flute. Boom. There's your arrangement.
It's just there's so much talent going from
but guys that really understood what songs are about.
play for the song.
I mean, I learned a whole lot doing both those records, Runaway and the single album.
And well, you mentioned Jay there, and obviously you and Jay have won Grammys together. You've had a long friendship together. So did you meet him kind of in that scene in Los Angeles?
Well, Jay was really close friends with David.
Yeah.
They brought me in to do some stuff on their AirPlay album, which is another Ground Zero West Coast record.
Yeah.
I mean, listen closely to Nothing You Can Do About It. Oh my goodness, And that was Steve Kipner who wrote the lyrics on it. And Kipner, I had done some stuff at Jay's house with Jay. We did some background on a Mark Jordan record. Mark's great too.
Yeah, that's another West Coast.
Another badass, And then Steve Kipner did a solo album. And Steve's, he wrote Genie in a Bottle. He co-wrote Hard Habit to Break. He wrote Let's Get Physical. I mean, the guy's just an amazing writer. And a sweet guy, one of the nicest guys ever, So so I had done a handful of work with Jay just at his house working on stuff that he was doing, including some Al Jarreau records.
Yeah, those are amazing.
Singing some backgrounds on Jarreau's stuff. I miss Al. He's really fun. He was fun. I miss him a lot.
He's super talented.
Well, nobody's kind of picked up that ball and carried it. That I can think of at the moment. I might be wrong, but
what would you describe his? Because there's so many different
Bobby
styles.
Caldwell said, "Man, Jarreau's great, man. He's got his pitch is ridiculous. Even when you're changing keys and accidentals, he's right there with you all the way. His enunciation is great, but after about 4 bars, he bing bongs you to death." Caldwell was another guy that was ground zero of what you'd call West Coast music.
Yeah,
and I kind of had a really really good West Coast following, but the problem is that everybody really liked West Coast because it opened up, it allowed more stuff. And then they only allowed that much. Now, if you're not inside that box, you're not happening, which was exactly what was happening with pop before West Coast came along. And, I kind of had a leaning toward R&B, in some ways more so than West Coast.
So with R&B, because like the way that you sing is very... when did that just start from the word go? That's and why do you think you just picked up that singing style? Was it your
Well, I grew up in Marin County, California, which is a little north of San Francisco, which is across the bay from Oakland, California. Now, Oakland had a radio station, AM radio station that I grew up on when I was a kid. It's called KDIA 1310, and they played all the R&B stuff. All the James Brown. I discovered Lou Rawls on that radio station. The first time I heard Lou Rawls, I went, "That's it. I just found my phrasing teacher." I got 2 of his albums. I came home from high school when I was about a freshman or sophomore in high school, and put both of those albums on over and over again, just to try to figure out where this guy's phrasing. Where is his phrasing? It's always on the back, a little bit on the back. And I became friends with him later on. And actually Graydon did an album with him and had me come in and sing some background. So, Lou and I, and we had the same manager for a while. And so I'd run into Lou off and on over the years, and he's a fun guy. He had a ball. And there was, I said, "Lou, where did you get that sort of back phrasing on the back side of it?" He says, "Well, I forgot the words till the last minute." I said, "You jive ass." We became pretty good friends. We could give each other as much shit as possible, which tells you what's going on with that. Yeah. And he was just, I learned probably more from him about phrasing than I did from listening to Ray Charles. I mean, obviously Ray Charles was...
Amazing phrasing.
Nothing. That was amazing.
Yeah.
There's a joke. Somebody goes to heaven and they see a big, long line of mansions right next door to each other. And then up on this bluff, this twice as big mansion overlooking the whole place. And he says, well, what are all these mansions? He says, well, those are the presidents of the United States. You know, the guys who had been president. What about that one up there? Oh, that's Ray Charles's.
Well, very well deserved, yeah.
He said, why Ray? He said, because there's only one Ray.
Yeah, damn right. He was one of the masters.
Well, yeah, he wrote the book. I mean, in a lot of ways. I mean, in terms of crossover, he was the guy that I think maybe the first guy they started using that word crossover.
Yeah. So many different genres.
Yeah, I mean, and I Can't Stop Loving You was number 1 for 6 months, and it's a Hank Williams song, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
it's a country song.
Because he's to cross over like that at that time into country music took
some doing.
Yeah, but there's no denying
because country wasn't. I mean, it might have crossed over to pop, with Neil Diamond and different people like that, but country wasn't. Nobody ever thought that it would cross over to like basically race records, R&B records, or black records. I mean, it was just in those days the United States was just their lines between races were much more boldly written, and they aren't anymore. I mean, somehow music had a way of just crossing over all the lines and erasing them.
But he was one of the early pioneers in that sense.
Oh, he's amazing.
But these influences you can definitely hear in your voice. Lou,
I mean, when the Suns' first album came out, I got one review on it. It sounded like Lou Rawls got a rock band. I went, oops, they got me. They caught me. Somebody actually, a music writer, figured out who I was copping. So, and a guy had told us years ago when we went to a show at a club in San Francisco, he says, always steal. Never stop stealing. Steal everything. If you hear something Willie Nelson did in the morning, steal it. Put it in your bandolero. Make it part of your thing. And then if Ray Charles did one, grab one of those. Grab something. If you like it, steal it. Just forget who you stole it from.
That's what everybody says.
Yeah.
But so when your voice goes to kind of like gravelly and like that raspiness, that's not like, is that put on? Is that something that you have to try to do, or does that just happen?
There's a lot of I think you would call it tricks. Occasionally, you want to really get something across. I can put a little thump on it. I call it that. Just give it a little extra push. Go for a lick and try to make it come out of you right new. You know what I mean? Don't sing, oh, now I'm going to sing lick number 7. No, you just sing and let something happen. It's like when McDonald was here, he did a couple of passes on this one song, and he did something I've never heard him sing before.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, and he says, I can fix that. I got something better I can sing there. I said, no. Yeah.
So just kind of happened.
And Amy, his wife Amy, was sitting there, and I said, "You ever heard him sing that?" She said, "No, I haven't either. It's staying on the record. You just copped yourself a new Michael McDonald lick." He said, "It's fine, He's very, very, very cool guy to work with. One of the best singers. One of a really great piano player too.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah,
but
Michael, another one I want to shoot. Not really, by any means.
But when you're singing, like, some of the stuff is such, it's a lead vocal, big vocal, but then you've got this, from what I read, you were awarded, a prize or an award, a very prestigious one, just for being, a backing singer for all of the sessions.
Yeah, they called it. I think it was a VIP or whatever the hell they called it.
Well, for the sake of, it was the National Association of Recording Arts and Sciences Most Valuable Player.
Yeah,
and awarded
MVP,
for background.
MVP award. Yeah,
yeah.
I think it was in 70, maybe 80. I don't know.
I think it was at the end of the 70s. Yeah. So, and that's
I've done a million gigs. I mean, I was really, really, really fortunate when I first came to LA, because I was hanging with David Foster and Jay Graydon. And both those guys were going out as cutting basics for producers all over town. So I moved into town right in the middle of it. It was screaming, man. Things were really going on. And they were like, well, I'm going to give your number to the producer so when he gets around to doing backgrounds that he might call you. So I got a few calls from different guys that Jay and David had, given my number to. And then they got me, in some cases, they got me my first gigs. And then the work I did got me my second and third gig and stuff like that. So the next thing you know, I'm waiting to do a record, waiting for a lawyer, attorney minuet to go through and different things for my first album. I'm waiting, and in the meantime, I got rent to pay. And Foster and Graydon were like, hey, maybe we can help you with that. So they started getting me with a bunch of different producers. So the next thing I know, I'm on some of the stuff that I'd worked with David, J.P. Morgan record and Keane Brothers. I had worked with Carmen Twilley and Vinette Cloud. And Carmen still works a lot in town. She's a great reader and a great musician, and I was considering my big sister. She's just a sweetie pie. She's a real lovely woman. She's a sweet, great singer, And her cousin Vinette Cloud is even better. Nettie sings soprano. Carmen usually sings tenor, and I was in falsetto singing alto. And we did dates all over town. And so Carmen taught me not only where you want to put the vocal, because a lot of times people say, wow, we're doing backgrounds. That means we're singing harmony with the lead singer for the whole record. And she said, no. You want to arrange the chorus so it's either answers or to where we're together with the lead singer for just a certain period of time. You want it to be able to differentiate between the different things. So in some ways, she didn't tell me so much what, but she told me where. And it was really a good thing to learn from her. So I started taking dates just to pay the rent.
When you were singing, did you have to arrange a lot of the time the backgrounds?
That's why they call me. More for the arrangements, probably more for the arrangements than the pipes. But in those days, my pipes were just U.S. steel stamped all over them. I mean, I could do anything, and I had really good falsetto. I was just in really, really good condition. And I smoked like a chimney. It was crazy. It didn't make any sense. I was smoking all the time, drinking all the time. I mean, it was insane. It was stupid. But I worked a lot, And
did you sing very differently when you were doing the backgrounds to, like, say, when you were singing something
you
on
gotta
a single
blend.
record? Yeah.
Yeah.
But you just knew what to do.
A lead vocal is a different story. I mean, there's times where, Tamara's busted me on it a couple of times. She said, that's a nice lead. It sounds like you're doing a background. Try singing it again. Try to see if you can make it sound like a lead vocal instead of just yet another track of backgrounds, because I do a lot of stacking, taking 6 tracks and, hitting the tenor part and then doubling it left and right. And then an alto part left and right, and then a soprano part left and right. I'll just do them all.
What makes
I call that the champlets.
What makes a good lead then?
It's hard to say. With me, it's just all of a sudden the lead is looser. I can move around it a little bit. I don't have to be concise. I mean, with backgrounds, I'll go. I said, well, okay, we're off on 3. So when we do the stack, we're off on 3. So all the backgrounds all go
clean.
And so you start paying attention to those little bits of math.
Yeah.
With lead, you leave the math back there somewhere.
You can hang on a bit longer.
Just go on and do whatever you want. Although I love a lead vocal that's locked on the time. There's certain records out there that just the time that the singer's singing is much part of the drum set as it is part of the string section or part of the piano. It's I always want anything that I put on a record, I want it to be able to feel like it's coming from the drum set. A lot of guys are like that. Almost all the singers in Earth, Wind & Fire are drummers.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
You
of
know,
course.
Maurice played drums on a lot of their records. Philip's a drummer. They're all drummers, so they all kind of are. They really lend a lot of importance to groove. You know, it's like if you've ever dealt with Pro Tools or anything like that, there's quantize. You know, there's a certain swing factor on you know, certain songs, and see if you can try to eyeball where the swing factor is and sing in that same little slot.
Where do you sit on the Pro Tools? You know, obviously there's a long raging debate on, you know, were things better before all the technology came in, before Pro Tools came in, or
well, I lived with tape for years. You know. Somebody said, "Hey, what'd you do your first album on?" I said, "Smoke Signals." You know, I mean, I think the first Sons album was 8-track. You know, you look at the legend on it as a drums, background vocal, clarinet, all of it ending up on one track. You know, and then all of a sudden there's more tracks, and suddenly you got 24 tracks. Wow, that's really good. So make it 23, and we can add another 23 by linking up another machine. And the Pro Tools just does away with all of that, because it links the link systems. Then you're dealing with gear again. And I'm not that much of a gearhead. I know just enough to get the vocal on tape. Tape, he says, into a Pro Tools track, or a group of Pro Tools track. I know enough to do that. I've got a decent microphone. I've got a decent preamp and compressor, and in it goes. You know what I mean? So I've got. That's about all I know.
So you still work in quite an old school way.
I'm working in Pro Tools just because it's some point. I mean, I ended up selling my 24 track. I loved it. God, I loved it. There's something happens with tape that doesn't happen with Pro Tools, but everybody's on. If it's not Pro Tools, they're in Logic or Digital Performer, or there's a handful of different platforms, but they all are WAV files. They all end up being the same thing. You're dealing with ones and zeros is pretty much what you're dealing with. And you want to try, you know, I always loved it. Man, we're going to charge you $20,000 to try to sound like your tape machine, which you already own. And I paid for it, and I went for it. But I mean, I kind of had to. I mean, the whole digital thing came along, and it was like a wave. You either caught the wave and surfed it on in, or you didn't. You know, you get wiped out.
Yeah. You had to kind of go.
Well, I know a lot of engineers that were so good at tape that really had trouble with Pro Tools. But you know, I worked with Al Schmidt years ago when he was just dealing with tape, and then I've worked with him when he was dealing with Pro Tools, and he understood all different sides of the coin.
Yeah. So people use the new technology. I mean, it doesn't undermine the importance of parts.
Yeah.
They're just using what's available.
Well, I mean, I was going with 24 track, straight 24 track, and then I did an album with Greg Matheson, and he brought in his Mitsubishi 32 track. But it was 32 track, you know, digital, but 16-bit instead of 24. And so eventually I just kind of got back around to 24-bit. Fine. It works great. I mean, people can go 96-bit or 198-bit, and that's enough.
and when it comes to stuff that you were doing on tape, like, I mean, it would have all been on tape, the stuff that you won this prize for,
well,
like
let's put it this way. With tape, if you do 6 tracks of your own stacking, usually just put your sliders up right next to each other. It's blended. With Pro Tools, it's got to be just right. You got to get it just right. Usually the middle part, you got to kind of move up sometimes during a word. Just the nature of digital versus tape. Tape just kind of wraps this sort of warmth around it, and boom, there you go. You got it.
That's very interesting.
So in some ways, in that sense, and I've had engineers say pretty much the same thing to me. In that sense, you're ahead of the game.
Yeah, the imperfections aren't so glaring.
The imperfections are what make stuff happen.
Make the record.
We did one thing on the single album, and we got Daryl Hall to sing this chorus for us. A song, it was a ballad called "We Both Tried." Beautiful, and it just had one melody, and we were going to stack 6 tracks of him singing the melody, just to give it some width. And he sang the first track, and Foster went, "Oh my God, this is flat all the way." I mean, consistently flat the whole way. And he just mentioned it. Daryl, I think you're under, Daryl. You're not hearing anything right. He says, "Don't worry about it. Double it." And the next track he hit, it was that much sharp the whole way. So it had a natural kind of chorusing that you would get from like a boss chorus or something like that, except he was doing it naturally. Because what makes chorusing is just a little pitch things. It's like with any of the
So he was
keyboard.
doing it deliberately?
He was doing it deliberately.
That's crazy.
And Foster looked at me and said, "That is a professional. That's a badass."
That is crazy.
and he was right, man. Daryl Hall's one of the best singers on the earth.
Yeah,
Now,
really.
bar
brilliant.
none. Forget about it. He's, game over. He's just as good as it gets.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, his voice
And
is
his
what
partner,
makes
I
that
mean,
material.
John's a monstrous singer too, but man, Daryl takes the cake. I mean, it's a whole other world,
Yeah, they are both brilliant, but I mean, when you've got someone like Daryl Hall, it's difficult to
You have a tendency to
say,
go
"Oh,
with
please,
it,
can I sing one?"
Well, it's like, look at Rascal Flatts. I mean, they're all singers, and Jay DeMarcus sings fine, and Joe Don sings fine, but man, none of them touch that Gary LaVox. I mean, LaVox is a one-of-a-kind singer.
How was it when you were in, how do you find it being in Chicago when you're, singing, and there's so many good singers in the band, and you're singing lead, sometimes you're singing background, sometimes. Was there a lot of competition between all the different quality lead singers?
Not particularly. I mean, Robert sang his songs. Jason sang pretty much the higher tunes. I kind of was handed the Terry Cass stuff, and any of the new stuff that was going on was usually up to the producer.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of the big hits, some of the studio recordings,
Yeah.
You sang.
Well, yeah, it's just the producers going, "Who's that guy?" "Oh, yeah, he's in the band." "I want him to sing." You just hear me for a second. And that sounds like a good radio voice right there. So I mean, we did a lot of work. By that time, I had done so much background stuff, so much arranging stuff, that in a way it kind of busted me out of the lead slot into the background slot, because I was really good at stacking stuff up, at putting background arrangements together. And Jason and I had done enough other gigs together, the West Coast All Stars and different things, a cappella records, and, many hours on microphone. So whenever it was time for a Chicago record, hey, let's just go do what we do.
On backgrounds, you were talking earlier about something that I didn't know about, a lot of people would be interested in, which is that you sang the backgrounds on the Elton John record "Little Genie," which is kind of included on a lot of West Coast things.
Me and 3 other guys, Nigel, Olsson, and Dee Murray were singing on it. They were both. That was the bass player. Dee Murray was the bass player, and Nigel was the drummer with Elton at the time, and Nigel's still the drummer with Elton. Dee passed away after a while. But good singer, both of them. I mean, God, Nigel's a great singer. I'd worked with him quite a few times before, mostly with Keith Olsson doing some stuff. But and then Max Carl, who's the singer who I think he's still working with. What's the name of that band? The Detroit band. I spent top dollar on my memory loss. You know what I mean? Grand Funk Railroad.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah. And Max was also the lead singer with 38 Special when they put out "Your Love, that's what you need." Max Carl, he's an amazing singer. Good piano player, good musician all the way around. A sweet guy, really cool guy. So we've done some stuff. He and I did a little bit of stuff for Richard Marx. We ran around town a little bit. He doesn't live here in L.A., so I'm kind of at the mercy of, I got to get guys who are here.
Yeah.
If you want them to sing. I don't really believe. I know you can do it these days. You can we transfer a whole track to somebody and have them do a bass part or a guitar part or a vocal part in their hotel room while they're on the road. In the records that I make, if I'm not there, it ain't going on.
That's a really good way to be, I think. I think stuff is lost if it's not in person.
Yeah, I mean, just, you get, well, I'll take this as he didn't really understand kind of what I wanted to happen here. And you want to make sure that the guy who's playing on the record knows what you want to happen happens.
Yeah, it's difficult to explain it when you're not in person and get that vibe. We've talked a lot about your singing, but your piano playing is obviously, a very important part of...
I don't think of myself as that much of a piano player. I definitely think of myself as an organ player. Hammond organ is more, I'm probably more known as a Hammond player than a piano player. But it's same black notes, same white notes, and they're all in the same place. But it's just a different style. Organ it's kind of you would consider it more of an overdub instrument, at least in West Coast music, and a lot of pop music and stuff like that.
Do you feel more affinity with being an organ player?
Huh?
Do you prefer playing organ?
Oh, I like organ, man. I could sit behind a B3 all night long and feel great about it, But I do a lot of guitar playing also.
Of course. Yeah.
On my own records, a lot of my own records, they lead with guitar. They start with guitar. Because I really learned, having played with having worked on records with Ray Parker and different rhythm players, that rhythm guitar is an art, and it's worth getting on the record as soon as you can. Get a good rhythm groove. I mean, my new album, you listen to it, you go, wow, the rhythm stuff's smoking.
Yeah. When it comes to one of my favorite records that you've ever cut of Runaway, Gotta Get Back to Love, and in general the guitar parts on the album, who played guitar?
Who did that? Who did play it? I think Jay might have played that.
Really?
But might have been Steve Lukather.
Really?
I don't remember.
And
whoever it was badass.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even my song. That got us the deal. It was a Tom Kelly song. I did it.
Yours the most famous version?
Pardon me?
Yours is the most famous version of that song, though, right?
Yeah, that's my version of it, and the one that Foster did. So Foster did a little bit of rearrangement of it, but the demo of the song was Tom Kelly's. We cut it in his garage.
And what about Without You?
Without You, I wrote that with Amber Delina. Her name is Amber Oberman now, and we just handed it. I did a little cassette of it and played it for David. He says, let's cut the song. And he cut it. He just had me on the click track. He says, I want you to raise the click, bring the click up 4 BPM at the tag, or 2, maybe 2 or 4 at the tag, because we're going to want to go like that. And he cut that track with just him and Jeff Beccaro.
Right, yeah. The backgrounds on that are pretty outrageous, I would say.
I think that's just me stacking.
Yeah, that's sort of like a signature. It sounds like a signature. And is it a similar technique to when you did the version of After the Love Has Gone on Jay's album?
Yeah, Airplay for the Planet.
Airplay for the Planet.
That to me is my favorite version of it.
Yeah, Jay says that too.
Forever. We were beta testing the new ADATs when we did that at Jay's house, and we were running 3 or 4 of them in a row, and every time one kicked in, it would go and go on, and then the next one kicks in, and which that thing is in, the chorus is in 4 different keys. It changes keys every 4 beats.
Yeah.
Love is gone, da-da-da-da-da-da. So your accidentals are different. And especially after you've gone, it took me 4 days to sing that damn thing.
Really? Yeah.
It would have taken 4 hours if we. I said, Jay, why couldn't we just go over to? He had 2 beautiful MCI 24 tracks. I said, just fly this on a 24 track. Let's go. Let's do work as usual. But he'd told Marcus that he was going to beta test them, so we beta tested him.
Well, I mean, it really. I think it's the best version of it. But there are so many of these.
The guitar in the middle is amazing.
Yeah, and it has a lot of things that I mean, I love the Earth, Wind and Fire version. Don't get me wrong, but it is the definitive version. There are so many songs that some people might not have heard. Obviously, there are loads of people know them, but I bet I might have missed a couple of tunes. So my last question to you is: what is something super obscure from your career that you're really like proud of, that you wish, I wish more people knew about that?
Oh, there's a million of them. You know, we did a whole album with this guy. I was doing background vocals, and a guy named Holden Raphael was the producer of the record. The artist was a guy named Kevin Moore, tall, good-looking black guy. He wrote really straight-ahead songs, like West Coast songs. They had Jeff and Mike playing, bass, drums and bass on it, and they had really good people. The Hey Horn guys were on it. It was all over there. The record never did anything. I don't even know if they even released it, but I mean, we were all, while we were making it, we were going crazy. So I ran into to the exec producer of the project, Chris. I forgot her last name. Yeah, that's wrong. That's just wrong. Chris Bennett, good singer also. But Chris came to a Sun show that we were doing at Billboard Live years and years later. It must have been 15 years later. And I said, "Say, Chris, whatever happened to Kevin?" And she just looks at me and says, "You don't get it, do you?" I said, "What do you mean?" Kevin Moore. Keb Mo. Oh shit, that's Kevin? I've worn out 2 Keb Mo records. I love him. He just switched to more of a blues, more of a what do you call it? More of a swampy kind of music, and he just did so well. He always wrote great songs.
He started off doing West Coast stuff.
Yeah, and you started off kind of doing a West Coast record, and I think at that point of the game, the bottom had kind of dropped out of it. People, I don't want to hear it anymore. Let's get back to some shitty R&B or some stock pop or something. And then Kevin, somebody told me a story. I guess he played. I knew he played guitar, but he never played on the record that I did with him. The backgrounds that I did, and I think it's seen the light. The record's seen the light of day. I saw it on Facebook or something a couple of months ago. I'm like, wow, people finally hear this. Great writer. He wrote a song called Riley B. King. It's about B.B. King. Beautiful, just tear-jerking song about of just an homage to B.B. King. So cool.
There must be so many, as you said, about 1 million of them in terms of records that you've worked on that you.
But some happen, some don't. It's
some are big hits.
Then even when the industry was as robust as it was, there's still a lot of records fell through the cracks.
Yeah,
that's the way it was.
But they always tend to be worth discovering. So thanks so much again for coming on the podcast, Bill. It's been really awesome. Is there anything that you want to direct people to promote?
Well, I know if you go to billchamplin.com/shop, we've got CDs available of my new album, Living for Love. It's not that new at this point. It's about 1.5 years old, maybe 2 years old. It's a really good album. There's a lot of very soulful stuff. I really decided on that record to really write what I was feeling, rather than just be the.
Were you working on that during lockdown?
A little bit, yeah. There was nothing else to do, so I went with that. We did a couple albums in a row. One was Wonderground, which has got some great stuff on it. With Tamara Champlin and Gary Falcone and me. So that was sort of the trio that. We ended up kind of writing this whole thing and singing on it. But the solo album, the Living for Love album, it's worth getting. Somebody said to me one time, I might have seen it on TV. I don't know where I saw it, but somebody said, well, if it's not personal, it's not art. Oh, wow. Okay. And I had, between my last solo album, which was No Place Left to Fall, which was in the early 2000s, George Hawkins was still alive at the time. The engineer, Jason Scheff, was still alive at the time. A lot of people have disappeared from that lineup of cats, and that was a great record. But it was 12 years to my next record, and during that period of time, I lost my son. My son Brad passed away in 2016. The day after he died of cancer, that was the day after I was diagnosed with cancer. So, I mean, it was like bad week.
My God.
Real bad week. So those things were, and I had to go through what I had to go through to write that. And that's on that record.
So it's really personal.
It's deep, yeah. It's deep, and it says it all. Because I've kind of realized at some point in the game, especially in country music, whenever anybody dies, suddenly they were angels when they were alive. Not necessarily true.
Yeah.
So to try to write that song and still be loving and still have and still be honest at the same time, that took me about 2 years to pull that one out of the hat. And it's a song called Another Lie, which is a lot of people have heard it and then know the story and go, holy Christ, you nailed the shit out of it. There's 3 Greg Matheson songs on there with me and Greg. Greg and I have always written some really, really good stuff together. There's just a lot of stuff that me and Tamara wrote together. There's the opening song is a track that Bruce Geich sent us, and Bruce hasn't been playing because he's had a stroke and it's kind of hard to strumming just isn't working that well. But Bruce and I have written millions of things over the years, and he sent me that track. It had George Hawkins on it, who was one of my favorite bass players and one of my best friends. And George passed away between when the track was cut and when I got it. And Tamara and I jumped all over that one, and that's the opening song on the record. And I called Bruce. I said, "Who's playing drums on that?" He said, "Oh, that's Vinny." Okay. So we got Vinny and George, Vinny Caliota and George Hawkins on bass, Bruce on all the guitars. I played organ on it, and we did the vocals on it and wrote the lyrics on it. It's just, it opens up with a bang, man. And there's some really cool stuff on that record. So if anybody's interested, if they still got a CD player, you could find it at iTunes probably, and Spotify or any of those. But
so you can stream.
I guess you can stream it.
Yeah.
I did a deal where the digital was handed over to another company.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I said, "You going to put out CDs?" He said, "No." I said, "Do you mind if I do?" He said, "No, go ahead."
Right. So CD is the place to get it.
I think so, because you get all the information.
Yeah. So go to your website, billchamplin.com.
Yeah. And I co-wrote a song with Andreas Carlson, who co-wrote a lot of stuff for with Max Martin in Sweden.
Oh, right, yeah.
Andreas was also the TV producer for Swedish Idol. Andreas is a bad boy. He just gets around like crazy. He's been on a lot of different records. I've known him since he was 18 years old. Great singer. Huh? Great, So that record, just when I started doing it, I figured, we'll just knock one off at home, and then next thing you know, different people in it. Lenny Castro was all over the record.
Oh, really? Wow.
Oh, Lenny's as good as it gets.
Yeah, fantastic.
And with Lenny, I just wrote a list of the songs. I said, whatever, let him decide what to do with it. And brought up a drive, and he just banged off, I think, all but one song on the album.
Wow.
Man, is that guy great.
So that's what people...
Him and Luis Conte, they kind of own percussion at this point. They're the guys.
Yeah.
And they're both monsters,
Yeah, really impressive seeing Lenny playing when I have with Toto.
Yeah, I mean, do you have a copy of it?
I don't think I do. But I will be ordering.
I'll get you one. Bill,
don't
leave without it. No, this is one you got to hear.
Well, thanks so much for the interview, Bill. Really appreciate it.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. And good luck getting Jay out of bed.
Yeah, I'll try.